4 Women, 1 Dream. The dream was born at the first women's rights meeting held in Seneca Falls in 1848. The delegates called for the right to vote, among other rights. What followed were decades of a determined spirit whose goal was to gather support for women's rights. 2 major movements, suffragists and feminists, emerged. Unfairness inspired them as they roused women to rethink their chance at their inalienable rights spelled out in the Constitution. The first movement was the suffragists. Even among suffrage supporters, there was much debate, for many suffragists, led by Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, believed the 14th Amendment should not be passed unless it included the right to vote for all, not just males. Lucy Stone was the first woman in Massachusetts to earn a degree, which she did from Oberlin College. She believed women should have the right to vote and was a leading member of the American Anti-Slavery Society. Her speech in 1850 is credited for recruiting Susan B. Anthony and Julia Howe for the suffrage movement. Helen Kendrick Johnson was opposed to suffrage. She was the founder of the Godon Club and a member of many anti-suffrage groups. These 2 women were on opposite sides of the debate of women's suffrage. Helen and Lucy never did meet. These are some letters they might have written diplomatically to each other, asking each other to think about their side of the argument.
Dear Mrs. Helen Kendrick Johnson,
Dear Mrs. Lucy Stone,
it has come to my attention that you are deeply opposing women's suffrage. All I ask is, why? Do you not respect yourself enough to want what you deserve?
Mrs. Stone, I have heard many things about you and your fight for suffrage. I myself believe women are really recognized as individuals the same as men, and the fact that they are so recognized made a basis for an argument of their voting.
I think suffrage is very important. It befuddles me you're opposed. We work just as hard as men and get no gratitude. I expect to plead not for slave only, but for suffering humanity everywhere, especially doing to labor for the elevation of my sex. I hope this letter may open your eyes to the other side of the argument.
I am going to send you a copy of my husband's pamphlet, Why Women Don't Want the Ballot. Reading it might persuade you to change your mind about suffrage.
Enclosed is this month's publication of My Women's Journal and an invitation to join the American Women's Suffrage Association.
Sincerely,
Lucy Stone.
Helen Kendrick Johnson.
Women won the right to vote in 1920 when the 19th Amendment was passed. Over time, small changes occurred. Hemlines gradually became shorter, long hair was replaced by bobs and permanent waves, and although men were considered the main breadwinner, single women and widows worked out of necessity. The Great Depression came and limited the opportunities for women in the workplace, even though they took a small step forward with the New Deals upholding the minimum wage law for both men and women. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, through her daily column, My Day, called attention to the problems of women, children, and minorities. She stated, where, after all, do the human universal rights begin? In small places, close to home. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity, without discrimination. World War II demonstrated that women could do countless jobs that had once been assigned to men. Women began to question the traditional role that society had thrust on them. The consequence of these historical moments caused the second women's movement, feminism. This second wave of feminist activity caused deep social change. During the early 70s, there were 2 women whose voices dominated the debate over women's rights. These women were Betty Friedan and Phyllis Schlafly. Betty Friedan was an outspoken supporter of the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, and a member of the NOW organization. Phyllis Schlafly believed women belonged in the home. Her voice declared that the feminists made fools of themselves and that every woman had the rights she needed, and they didn't need more. Phyllis was the founder of the Eagle Forum and led a 10-year battle against the ERA under the banner of faith and family. It is the spring of 1973 at Illinois State University, and once again, Betty and Phyllis are debating women's issues.
The ERA will take away from young women their exemption from the draft. It will take away from wives and mothers the right to be provided with a home and financial support by their husbands, senior women their extra Social Security benefits, and women's present freedom of choice to take a job or to become a full-time wife and mother. In short, it will take away the right to be a woman.
I'd like to burn you at the stake. Your scare tactics are stalling the ratification of the ERA that was just passed last year. Aren't you a hypocrite? You had a career yourself, but you don't want other women to have one.
It's about treating women as victims. About time they can't succeed because society is unfair to you. I think that's a very unfortunate idea put in the minds of young women because I believe women could do whatever they want.
Really, each suburban wife struggled with that idea as she made the beds, shopped for groceries, matched slipcover material, chauffeured Cub Scouts and brownies, ate peanut butter sandwiches with her children, lay beside her husband at night, afraid to ask even herself the silent question, is this all?
That's not all. Women should appreciate the time spent with their children and family.
What if you're not married? What if you're divorced?
It's always going to be the woman's fault for divorce. However, when it comes to determining child custody, sexism is the rule.
That's absurd. Why would it be the women's fault for divorce? It's the men's fault too, not just the women's. We share equal blame in this situation. Although man is not the enemy here, but the fellow victim.
Men should stop treating feminists like ladies and start treating like the men they say they want to be.
Before even being married, a woman should have an education. Only 4% of women are earning law degrees.
Excuse me, I'm a college graduate from Radcliffe nonetheless, but home remains my primary focus. The joys of family and marriage are of utmost importance.
Interestingly enough, in 1978, Phyllis earned her law degree from Washington University. Betty and Phyllis waged heated debates over the years, only to see an impasse occur regarding the Equal Rights Amendment. Betty felt success with this passage in 1972, but had regrets as Phyllis rejoiced when only 35 states ratified the ERA. 3 short needed to allow it to become the 20th Amendment to the Constitution.
The success of the dream of women's rights was realized in 1920 when the 19th Amendment was passed, which gave women the right to vote, and continued through the 20th century as women changed people's view about marriage, family life, the workplace, and even the way men and women view their lives. The failure is that women are still clamoring for equal rights both here in the U.S. and globally. Ending illegal wage discrimination in this country remains incomplete. You see, in 2009, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act restored a worker's right to challenge illegal wage discrimination in the federal courts. Yet the findings in the recently published report, Women in America, states that 61% of women work, yet are only paid 75% of what their male counterparts are paid. In fact, the United Nations states that women produce half the world's food and work and 2/3 of the world's working hours, yet only earn 10% of the world's income. Wage inequity is an old problem that continues to hold women back, despite recent and past court decisions.
The consequences of the dream are that now women are creating a different type of American dream. The Shriver Report is a fascinating window into the American home, stating that debate occurs each night as married couples negotiate the rules of their relationships, work, and family. They're sitting down at their kitchen tables to coordinate their family schedules, duties, and responsibilities, including child care and elder care. The snapshot report disclosed in the report, Women in America, states that women continue to pass men by. Where female students were a novelty 2-3 generations ago, women are now the majority on campus. Young women are now more likely to earn a degree than young men. There has been a trend in delaying first marriage and childbirth, and it has been linked to the increase in schooling and the rising labor force participation by women. Globally, that picture is quite different. In third world countries, 1 in 6 adults is not literate. 2/3 of them are women. One has only to watch the evening news to see that the debate still continues in 2011. The example, Egyptian women demanding a voice in new leadership. The voices that rose in that small women's rights convention in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York, are echoed by today's women around the world.
The voices that argue for a society free from inequality, oppression, and discrimination.
Voices that fight for acceptance, recognition, and equal rights.